It started with a bark. Not a loud one, but deep, rumbling, and purposeful. The kind of bark that cuts through the night and sinks straight into your bones. Detective Noah Briggs had heard it before. He'd come to trust that sound more than his own instincts. And when Rex, his retired canine partner, growled low and barked twice, sharp, deliberate, at exactly 2:03 a.m., Noah knew something was off. Then his phone rang. The ringtone shattered the silence of his modest Seattle apartment like a rock through stained glass. He grabbed it, still half asleep, heart pounding in rhythm with the German shepherd now standing rigid by the door, fur bristling. "This is Briggs," he said, voice hoarse. A young man's voice tumbled through the speaker, shaky and scared. Detective? Is this the homicide unit?" "Technically, who is this?" I'm just a delivery guy, man. I was dropping food off at Hanamura Sushi on Pike Street. But the place is shut. Like, completely dark, and no lights, doors locked. It felt wrong. People forget they ordered? It happens. No, this is different." The kid was breathing hard now, wind in the background. "I heard something inside. A sound I can't explain, like someone scratching. Then a voice. Muffled, like someone was gagged." Noah sat up straighter. Rex was already at the door, tail still, ears high. "Did you call the owner?" "Yeah. Number matched the place. Some guy answered, swore he didn't order anything, said he was home sleeping, but—" The caller paused. "There's a giant padlock on the outside, like one of those U-locks for bikes, but industrial-sized." Briggs was already pulling on jeans over his sweatpants. "You're still there?" "I'm across the street. I didn't want to leave." "Good man. Stay put. Don't approach. I'll be there in 10. He hung up, and in that instant, he and Rex were moving like clockwork. Vest, badge, Glock, and the leash. Not because Rex needed restraint, but because protocol said so. The street was still drenched in midnight's hush when Briggs turned onto Pike. The sushi restaurant stood out like a silent question mark among the shuttered storefronts, clean facade, subtle lighting, Japanese characters on bamboo panels. But there was nothing peaceful about it now. Rex's low growl started before the engine even stopped. It wasn't loud, but it was final. Briggs recognized it like a signature. Something dangerous waited beyond that door. The kid, barely 20, approached from a shadowed doorway across the street, eyes wide. "I swear, I heard someone in there." Briggs nodded, eyes scanning the storefront. Then he saw it. The padlock. Too new. Too out of place. "You did the right thing calling," he said, and motioned the delivery driver to retreat. "Now go. Far. This isn't your problem anymore." The kid didn't argue. Across the pavement, Rex was already circling, sniffing. He stopped abruptly by the lock, then turned to the detective with a single clipped bark. That's when Briggs knew. Something, or someone, was trapped. He radioed in for backup and a forced entry team. Seattle PD didn't usually break down doors without a warrant. But there was no time. The urgency in Rex's body was all the confirmation he needed. 10 minutes later, a van screeched to a halt. Flashing red and blue strobes bathed the sushi bar in flickering color. Officers spilled out. A hydraulic cutter hissed. Metal screamed. The lock clattered to the sidewalk. The moment the steel door lifted, a wave of rot and mold rushed out, like a long-held breath finally exhaled. And then came the silence. Not peaceful, but thick, heavy. Like the building was waiting. Rex was first through the door. The interior of Hanamura was pristine, almost too much so. Booths were empty, chairs pushed in, bar spotless. Then Rex growled again and bolted toward the back. Briggs followed. Behind the kitchen was a narrow hallway. At the end, a closed door. Rex sat, body stiff, nose glued to the crack between floor and wood. Briggs gently turned the knob. It wasn't locked. The smell hit harder this time. Bleach, damp, and something else. Something medical. He clicked on his flashlight. Stairs, leading down. They descended into a concrete basement. A single light bulb flickered from above. And in the center of the room, tied to a metal chair with duct tape across her mouth, was a girl, barely 20, her eyes wide with terror. Rex padded over slowly, gently, and rested his head on her knee. Briggs tore the tape free. The girl gasped, coughed, sobbed. They can't know I'm alive," she stammered. "Please." Who did this to you?" She looked up, tears streaking her face. "The Dragon Crest. I was investigating. They found me." Then she fainted. Support stories like this by subscribing to Heroes for Animals. Because sometimes a dog is the difference between survival and silence. Back upstairs, the crime scene team swarmed in. The restaurant owner, who'd claimed to be asleep at home, was miraculously present in his pajamas, pretending to be confused. But he was sweating. A lot. Rex wouldn't stop staring at him. Briggs stepped outside, breathing in the cool night air, one hand resting on Rex's head. He'd seen evil in many forms, but whatever Dragon Crest was, it had just stepped out of myth and into his jurisdiction. And Rex had just sniffed the first breadcrumb. The girl's face lingered in Noah Briggs's mind long after she'd been wheeled into the ambulance. Emily Tran, 21, senior journalism student at the University of Washington. That's all they knew for now. What she had whispered before passing out echoed over and over again in his head. The Dragon Crest. I was investigating. They found me. Back inside the sushi restaurant, the scene was now swarming with Seattle PD, forensic techs, and crime scene photographers. Yellow tape sealed off Pike Street like a ribbon of warning. Lights flashed. Reporters circled like buzzards just beyond the perimeter. But the real focus was back downstairs, in the basement, where Rex had led them. Briggs stood by the top of the stairs, arms folded, eyes scanning the restaurant floor, like a puzzle he couldn't solve. Rex sat silently beside him, unusually still. The dog had a way of reading the room, and this room reeked of secrets. Officer Natalie Grant approached with a tablet in hand. We got an ID confirmation from her student records. She's legit. Journalism student. Top of her class. Briggs nodded, eyes narrowing. And no missing person report? None filed? Not even a wellness check? He sighed. So she was either taken very recently, or whoever knew she was missing didn't think to call it in. Natalie lowered her voice. Or didn't want to. Briggs glanced down the basement stairs again. He hated basements, places where things got buried. Memories, evidence, people. Rex suddenly stood up and trotted toward the bar counter. Briggs followed, curious. The dog paused behind the counter and sniffed hard near the wall. Then he sat and stared intently. Briggs knelt. There, half hidden behind a stack of menus, was something odd. A plastic bottle of hospital-grade disinfectant. Industrial strength. Not something you'd normally find in a sushi joint. He picked it up with a gloved hand and turned it toward the light. The label was faded but legible. Sterigard Pro Plus, the kind used in clinics, morgues, or clean rooms. Not in kitchens. Briggs bagged it for evidence. You always know where to look, he muttered to Rex. The dog wagged his tail once. No bark, no growl, just an understanding. Back at precinct headquarters, Briggs stared at the interrogation room monitor. Inside sat Richard Chen, 54, owner of Hanamura Sushi, wrapped in a silk robe and irritation. His alibi was that he had been asleep in his condo across the street and came down to see what the commotion was. But Briggs didn't buy it. The man had bags under his eyes and sweat on his collar, not from sleep. He turned to Captain Reyes. You believe him? Not for a second, she replied. But we don't have enough to hold him. His phone GPS shows him at home all night. No prints on the basement door. That place was scrubbed clean. Whoever did this knows how to cover tracks. Briggs ran a hand through his hair, exhausted. We're missing something. Reyes folded her arms. What about the girl? She's stable, still unconscious. Docs say she was dehydrated, sedated, bound for hours. Could be longer. She got lucky. Reyes shook her head. No, she had Rex. At the hospital, Briggs stood outside room 204, Rex sitting quietly at his side. Nurses gave them space. They all recognized the dog from stories that had spread across precincts. The dog that broke the opioid ring. The one who found the missing toddler in a storm drain. Rex was legendary, but tonight he seemed unusually alert. His ears twitched with every hallway sound. Inside the room, Emily lay still, Ivy in her arm, face pale against the white sheets. Her breathing was steady, but her brows were furrowed as if dreaming through a nightmare. Briggs hesitated, then stepped in. A nurse gave a soft nod. You can talk? She might hear you. He pulled up a chair, Rex lying at his feet. Emily, he began softly. My name's Noah Briggs. I'm with the department. The dog you saw. His name is Rex. He found you. Rex lifted his head, ears twitching. I don't know what the Dragon Crest is, he continued, but I'm going to find out. And I'm going to find the people who did this to you. There was no response, but then her fingers twitched, just slightly. Enough. Rex let out a Leo soft whine. Back at the scene, crime scene techs were still combing through the basement. One of them, an older tech named Jim Mathers, called in through Briggs' phone. Noah, you're going to want to come back. What is it? We found something. Briggs returned just after midnight. The place was quieter now. The air still held that strange blend of rot and antiseptic. Jim met him at the bottom of the stairs. We lifted a floorboard in the corner. He shined a flashlight into a dark recess. There, wedged between the joists, was a shard of something. Jim held it up in tweezers. It's pottery, maybe ceramic, but not modern. Look! It was smooth, curved, and glazed with an ocean green hue. Ancient, delicate. Looks like something out of a museum, Jim said. Briggs frowned. Or stolen from one. He bagged it, sealed it. Get it to forensics. I want a rush job. Then Rex growled again. A low, subtle rumble. What is it? Briggs asked. But Rex wasn't looking at the shard. He was staring at the back wall. He approached slowly, sniffed the baseboards, then pawed once at a discolored tile. Jim raised a brow. That shouldn't be loose. They pried it open. Inside was a tiny vent, lined with dust, and inside that, barely visible under a layer of lint, a SIM card. 2 hours later, the contents of the SIM card were being decrypted by a tech named Rachel from Cybercrimes. She wore a hoodie and headphones and worked like her hands were on fire. Briggs paced behind her. What did we have? Rachel didn't look up. Encrypted logs, messages, GPS pings, some images. Looks like surveillance files. From what? She turned her monitor. You're not gonna like this. On the screen, a blurry image of a college campus courtyard. In the center of the frame, Emily, sitting alone. Laptop in front of her. Timestamp, 3 days ago. They were watching her, Rachel said. Maybe for weeks. Briggs clenched his fists. She's not just a random victim. She's the reason. Back at the hospital, dawn was breaking through the blinds. Emily stirred. Briggs was still there, so was Rex. Her eyes fluttered open. She saw the man. Then the dog. Tears welled up instantly. You're safe, Briggs whispered. You're not alone. She nodded, voice hoarse. I was working on something. They found out. What were you working on? She turned her head slowly. A story about stolen artifacts. They called themselves the Dragon Crest. Briggs's blood went cold. They knew I was close, she whispered. They said they'd make me disappear. Rex leaned his head gently into her side. She smiled weakly. You're the reason I'm still alive, she whispered to him. He thumped his tail once on the floor. Briggs stood. Rest. We've got work to do." He turned to leave the room, but he didn't see the man watching from the parking lot. Black coat, ball cap, no expression. He picked up his phone and whispered just one word: compromised. The sound of a garbage truck thudding down an alley cut through the early morning haze like a drum beat. Detective Noah Briggs rubbed the sleep from his eyes and stared at the blinking cursor on his laptop. Across the table, Rex lay with his chin on his paws, but his eyes were open, watching. 3 cups of coffee, no leads. He had barely slept. The shard of ancient pottery was still sitting in the evidence bag in front of him. Ocean green glaze. Cracked edge. Something about it gnawed at him. Not just what it was, but where it had been. Buried in a wall of a sushi restaurant basement, next to a bound college student, next to a SIM card filled with surveillance images of her. He picked it up and turned it under the light again. Nothing modern about it. No barcode, no mass production markings. He slid it back into the envelope and sighed. "I need to find that delivery guy," he muttered. Rex thumped his tail lightly, as if in agreement. They had the number. The kid, Ryan Mendoza, had given it when he made the 2 a.m. call. Briggs tried it again. Straight to voicemail. He looked up the address on file. A month-to-month rental, west side of the city. No registered vehicle, no social media presence beyond a few pizza photos and a link to his DoorDash profile. "Ghost," Briggs said aloud. An hour later, Briggs pulled into a cracked driveway in front of a rundown fourplex. The rain had started again, a soft drizzle that coated the windshield in mist. Rex sat upright in the back seat, ears slightly forward. Briggs got out and walked up to Unit 4, Ryan's last known location. He knocked. No answer. He knocked again. "Ryan Mendoza? It's the police. We just want to talk." Silence, then a creak. Briggs's hand moved to his sidearm instinctively. A neighbor, a stocky woman in a Seahawks hoodie, opened her door across the walkway. "You looking for the delivery kid?" Briggs turned. "Yeah, Ryan Mendoza. You seen him?" She frowned. "Not since 2 nights ago. He came running home just after midnight. Looked white as a sheet. Didn't even say hi. Threw a duffel in the trunk of some beat-up Civic and drove off like the devil was on his heels." Briggs felt his chest tighten. "That was the same night he called us." "Something happened?" "You could say that." She narrowed her eyes. "He in trouble?" "No, but I'm afraid he might be in danger." The inside of Unit 4 was easy to access. No deadbolt, just a standard lock the landlord agreed to open. Briggs stepped inside slowly, Rex just behind him. It smelled stale. Lived in but abandoned fast. The floor was cluttered with laundry, fast food wrappers, and a tipped-over folding chair. A half-eaten burrito sat congealed on a plate. But the strangest thing? The phone. A cheap prepaid model sat on the nightstand, screen cracked, battery missing. Rex sniffed once and let out a low whine. He paced to the corner of the room and scratched at the baseboard. Briggs followed. There was a crumpled hoodie shoved into the space, one with a delivery company's logo on it, and a small notepad with 3 words scrawled in shaky handwriting. "They saw me." That was it. No Ryan, no blood. But the kind of fear you could still feel in the air. Back at the precinct, Briggs laid everything out on a whiteboard in the operations room. Emily Tran's photo. The sushi restaurant. The ceramic shard. The SIM card. And now, Ryan Mendoza. Missing. Captain Reyes walked in mid-sentence. "You think he ran?" she asked. "I think he was chased." Reyes crossed her arms. "This is turning into more than a hostage case." "No kidding. Emily was investigating a story. She gets grabbed. Ryan hears something and disappears. We find a 15th century pottery shard next to medical-grade disinfectant in a basement. None of this lines up." Reyes tilted her head. "It does, just not in the way we're used to." That night, the call came. Briggs was back home, sitting in the dark, staring at Rex asleep on the couch, when his phone rang. The caller ID said unknown. He answered, "Briggs." Silence. Then, "Detective, We're watching you. Briggs didn't move. The voice was filtered, distorted, electronic. You're asking questions you shouldn't, about people you don't understand. Who is this? You want to save the dog? You stop digging. Simple. His knuckles went white around the phone. You lay a hand on that dog, and I swear. The voice laughed. I'm not the one you should be worried about. That delivery boy? He asked the wrong question at the wrong time. Now he's learning the price of curiosity. What did you do to him? I didn't do anything, but others will, and they're less civilized. A click. Deadline. Briggs stared at the phone. Rex stood now, body tight, eyes locked on him. He was shaking, not in fear, in rage. At 4 a.m., Briggs stood outside a small evidence room in the forensics building. A familiar voice greeted him. Dr. Lena Voss, an antiquities expert the department occasionally consulted. She looked up from a small examination tray. You really know how to find trouble, Briggs. He smirked. That's what they keep telling me. Lena held up the pottery shard under the microscope light. This is no imitation. Glaze composition matches the Chudao kilns, early 15th century. This thing's worth more than a Seattle condo. What was it doing in a sushi bar basement? She raised an eyebrow. That's the better question. These pieces are usually found in museums or private collections. Black market types will pay hundreds of thousands. Briggs whistled low. So it's not just about kidnapping. No, it's about something bigger. Lena slid him a printed report. Also, the trace dirt on the shard contains marine sediment, salt residue, microscopic shells. He leaned closer. Meaning it was somewhere close to sea level, possibly a shipping port or a container yard. Briggs blinked. Ports. Seattle had plenty of them, and so did Tacoma. Rex sat patiently in the hallway as Briggs exited the lab. He patted the dog's head and whispered, You were right from the start, partner. But inside, Briggs was burning. Whoever they were, the Dragon Crest, they weren't just thugs. They had money, structure, and a network. They'd been watching Emily. They'd tracked Ryan. Now they were threatening him and Rex. And they were moving something ancient, valuable, and likely illegal. Artifacts, secrets. He looked down at Rex. We need to go deeper, smarter. Rex gave a quiet bark. Briggs didn't smile this time. He just nodded. By 10 p.m., the port of Tacoma was alive with noise, but not the kind most people noticed. Forklifts beeped. Metal scraped against concrete. Massive container ships moaned under the strain of being loaded and unloaded. Cranes swung cargo high above the ground like mechanical giants. It looked like organized chaos. But to Detective Noah Briggs, it was the perfect place to hide something. Or someone. He pulled the unmarked SUV off the main access road and turned into an older maintenance gate that hadn't seen much use. The chain-link fence was rusted, and the padlock hung open, almost like it had been expecting him. In the back seat, Rex stood at attention, nose twitching, eyes alert. You feel it too, Briggs muttered, glancing at the rows of shipping containers beyond the fence. Let's go find our ghost. An hour earlier, Captain Reyes had reluctantly signed off on the plan. Stealth recon, no uniforms, no backup. Unless Briggs failed to check in by 2 a.m., the risk was high. But so was the urgency. Too many things pointed here. Marine sediment on the ceramic shard. A SIM card with GPS hits pinging near the port. And now a name, Dragon Crest, showing up on a filtered email pulled from the SIM. Rex had picked up something in that evidence room. He'd sniffed the clay, then the lab's shipping crates, and started whining. Not loudly, but with purpose. It was all coming to a head here. Briggs parked behind a stack of pallets near a dim security light. He cracked the driver's door and paused. The air smelled of salt, oil, and old metal. The kind of place that never quite slept. Rex hopped out quietly, his movement smooth and silent. They made their way toward the older container lot, where the tech said security coverage was thin and most cameras hadn't worked in months. That was no accident. Someone had planned for invisibility. The containers stood like buildings, stacked 3 high, row after row. Red, blue, green, brown, rusted orange, some tagged with graffiti, others spotless. It was a steel labyrinth. Rex moved ahead, nose to the ground. Briggs followed, Glock holstered but ready. They turned a corner. Rex froze, then crouched. Briggs dropped to a knee. Voices. Male. Close! 2 men walking and talking in low tones, unaware anyone was listening. Shipment comes in Thursday night. We load fast, split it across the trucks. And the buyer? East Coast, some museum piece. Boss says it's the real deal, Vietnamese dynastic. Briggs' pulse quickened. He peeked around the corner. 2 figures in black jackets, one carrying a flashlight, the other a clipboard. The perfect cover. Security staff doing a routine check. Except this check was too quiet, too specific. Briggs stepped back and whispered, "Rex, mark it." Rex gave a low growl, barely audible. Then suddenly, crash! Something metallic fell just behind them. A crowbar? A pipe? Briggs couldn't tell. The men turned. "Hey, who's back there?" A flashlight beam cut through the dark. "Run!" Briggs hissed. He and Rex bolted, weaving between container stacks. Shouts followed. One of the men fired a warning shot, ricocheted off steel. Sparks flew. Rex didn't bark. Didn't panic, just ran like he knew every exit. Briggs followed him down a narrow service lane, up a short ladder between containers, and onto a catwalk that overlooked the lot. They crouched. Below, more men had joined the chase. 5 now, all armed. "They've got a crew," Briggs whispered. "Organized, not smugglers. This is cartel level." He pulled out his burner phone and texted Reyes. "Need extraction. 5+ hostiles, armed, deep lot." They waited. 10 minutes. 20. No reply. Either his message hadn't gone through, or something had gone wrong. Then Rex growled, low, deep, focused. Briggs turned to look where Rex was staring, and saw it. A container, unlike the others. It wasn't marked. No company logo, no ID number. And the padlock? Missing. Briggs drew his gun and approached slowly. Rex didn't bark, just crept forward, muscles tight. Briggs opened the door. The smell hit him first. Damp fabric, mold, sweat, and something sharper. Inside, under a tattered wool blanket, a figure stirred. He flipped on his flashlight, and there he was. Ryan Mendoza, the delivery kid. Eyes wide, gagged, bruised. Alive. Briggs rushed forward, pulled off the gag. Ryan gasped. They said they'd kill me if I talked. You're okay now. I've got you." Rex padded forward, nudged Ryan gently with his snout. The boy almost cried from relief. "I heard them talking about moving a crate tomorrow. Said it was worth millions. Some artifact. Said Dragon Crest has someone inside customs." Briggs cursed under his breath. This wasn't just smuggling. It was orchestration. High level. Protected. He pulled out his radio. "This is Detective Briggs. I have the witness. I repeat, I have the witness. Suspects are armed and mobile. Immediate backup requested. Grid Delta 4. Static. Then, copy, units inbound, 5 minutes, hold position." Briggs turned to Ryan. "Can you walk?" Ryan nodded shakily. They stepped out of the container, and all hell broke loose. A gunshot rang out, striking the side of the metal wall. Sparks flew. Rex lunged forward, barking now. Loud, sharp, full force. From behind a crate, 2 men opened fire. Briggs returned fire while pulling Ryan behind cover. "Stay down!" he yelled. Rex circled around, darting through gaps, flanking with precision. He tackled one of the gunmen from the side, knocking him flat. The other turned. Briggs fired. Down. Silence. Then sirens. Floodlights. Seattle PD backup poured in from the North Access Road. Officers in tactical gear moved like a tide, swarming the scene. In minutes it was over. 2 men arrested, 1 wounded, 1 missing. But Ryan was alive. And so was the case. Back at the precinct, Ryan sat wrapped in a thermal blanket, sipping coffee. His hands still shook, but he was talking. "They've got lists," he said, "shipping manifests, fake names, whole containers disappear off the books, all run through companies that don't really exist." "And where are they headed?" Reyes asked. Ryan looked up. "Mostly East Coast, some to Europe, some gone for good." Briggs rubbed his jaw. "We need those documents." Ryan nodded. "I know where they keep them. At least where I saw one guy hide a copy." "Where?" Ryan's voice dropped. "A gallery downtown. East Wind Curations. Looks like an art shop, but it's a front. That's where they meet." Briggs and Reyes exchanged a glance. Another lead, another layer. Rex, lying near the corner of the room, lifted his head. Another battle won, but the war was just beginning. If you didn't know what to look for, East Wind Curations would seem perfectly ordinary. It sat on a quiet block in downtown Seattle, nestled between a boutique wine store and a dog grooming spa. Its awning was deep burgundy, with gold calligraphy spelling out its name. Inside, warm lighting danced off glass display cases holding antique ceramics, vintage paintings, and handcrafted wooden masks. The place smelled like incense and lemon polish. It was the kind of shop where tourists wandered in looking for authentic Asian art and left with overpriced chopstick sets. Detective Noah Briggs didn't buy any of it. Neither did Rex. From the moment they stepped through the door, Rex was tense. Not hostile, just aware. He sniffed the floor tiles, then the air, and let out a low grunt. "Afternoon," said a man behind the counter, looking up from a catalog. He wore a navy sweater vest over a crisp white shirt. Polished, soft-spoken. A walking nothing to see here. "You guys just browsing?" Briggs flashed a faint smile. "Something like that." He let his badge flip open. The man's smile faltered. "Official business?" Briggs said calmly. "We've got reason to believe this place may have received some questionable shipments." "Excuse me?" The man's eyes darted to Rex. Briggs leaned on the counter. "Let's not do this dance. You've got two options. Cooperate now, or do it with a warrant," and the media camped outside. A pause. Then the man exhaled slowly. "Name's Harrison Chu. I'm the manager, but I just run the floor. I don't deal with shipments. You mind if we look around?" Chu hesitated. Rex growled. "Be my guest," he said through clenched teeth. They moved slowly through the store. Rex led, sniffing every corner. Briggs eyed the artifacts, noticing the odd blend of genuine and imitation pieces. Some were centuries old. Others were museum-quality replicas. But the mix was intentional. Misdirection. At the back of the store, Rex stopped in front of a locked door marked "Staff Only." He sat, then looked up at Briggs. The signal was clear. Briggs turned. "Mr. Chu, what's back there?" "Storage. I'd like to see it." "It's locked. I've got a badge." Inside the storage room, the air shifted. It was colder, dustier. A single bulb hung overhead, casting long shadows across stacked crates and wrapped canvases. Rex sniffed a canvas bundle and then walked to a tall wooden cabinet. He sat again. Briggs opened it. It looked like a wine cabinet, but instead of bottles, rows of manila envelopes were tucked into horizontal slots. Handwritten tags dangled from each one: Kyoto, Bangkok, Guangnam, Haiphong. He opened one. Shipping manifests. Detailed, coded, but not subtle enough. Company names, container numbers, destination ports. Reyes had been right. This wasn't just smuggling. It was a network. One envelope was marked with a red star. Briggs flipped it open. Inside, high-resolution photos of the same ceramic shard found in the sushi restaurant basement. But this one wasn't broken. It was whole, labeled Chu Do Vas, 15th century, intact. Next to it, a note. Buyer confirmed. Shipment scheduled. Route, Tacoma, Long Beach, Rotterdam. No customs flag. His stomach turned. This was national. global, and someone was pulling strings high up to keep it moving. Briggs returned to the main room with the envelope in hand. "You want to tell me who runs this place?" he asked. Chu's composure cracked. "I told you, I just manage it." Briggs stepped closer. "Don't lie. I've got enough right now to tear this shop apart with a federal task force. This is your chance." Chu licked his lips, then glanced at Rex, still watching him like a hawk. "Look, I never met the top guy. We call him Kai, Vietnamese, maybe mid-50s, speaks fluent English, never raises his voice. He shows up when there's a high-value piece, gives orders, then vanishes." "And you've seen him here?" "Oh, twice." "When?" "Last week. He dropped off a thumb drive, said it had updated route logs." "Where is it now?" Chu opened a drawer and slid a black USB drive across the counter. Briggs picked it up with a gloved hand. "If this leads to anything illegal, you're looking at serious charges." Chu shrugged. "You think I'm in charge? You think I have a choice? Half the people involved are cops, feds, port supervisors, customs officers. You don't touch the Dragon Crest. They touch you." Briggs locked eyes with him. "We'll see about that." That night, back at the precinct, the thumb drive was plugged into an isolated laptop. Captain Reyes, Briggs, and a tech named Logan stared at the screen as dozens of folders appeared, each one named after a city: Seattle, Oakland, Houston, Miami, Rotterdam, Ho Chi Minh City, Tokyo, Arica. Briggs opened Seattle. Hundreds of shipping container IDs, timestamps, pickup schedules, then a subfolder titled Watch List. Inside, photos, surveillance images, people, customs officials, private collectors, even a well-known city councilman. And Briggs froze. It was him, a still frame, taken 2 nights ago, walking Rex outside the precinct. Reyes leaned forward. "They've been watching you." "Not just me," Briggs said. He flipped through the images. Rex, Ryan, Emily, even the neighbor woman from Ryan's apartment complex. They're preemptive. Anyone who talks, anyone who helps, gets flagged. "Which means," Reyes began. "We're running out of time." The next morning, Briggs got a call from the hospital. Emily was awake. When he arrived, she looked stronger, still pale but alert. Her hands trembled slightly as she sat up. "You're lucky to be alive," he said softly. She nodded. "I know." He sat down. Rex rested quietly at her feet. "I found your article draft," Briggs said. "The one about lost Vietnamese artifacts." Her eyes widened. "How?" "Recovered it from the SIM card, along with surveillance files." She blinked slowly. "Then they know you're involved." Briggs nodded. She swallowed. "They were planning a showcase, not public. Invitation only. They were going to reveal the vase, the real Chu Dao, to a buyer from Europe." "Where?" Emily closed her eyes. "A private estate, north of Seattle, 2 nights from now." Briggs stood. "Do you have the address?" She nodded slowly and handed him a small journal from her bag. He flipped through it until he found it. A name scribbled in the margin. Kai Estate, Raven Ridge, Snohomish County. Everything pointed there. The buyer, the artifact, the leader, and there may be, just maybe, justice. Back at the station, Briggs pulled up the map of Snohomish County and circled the remote property nestled deep in forested hills. "Looks like our next move," Reyes said. Briggs nodded. "This ends where it started." Rex sat at his feet, tail still, eyes fixed on the map. A hunt was coming, and Rex never missed. The rain started as a whisper. It tapped softly against the windshield as Briggs guided the SUV up the winding road that led to Raven Ridge, a secluded estate hidden deep in the Snohomish Hills. The forest thickened on either side, pine trees tall and watchful like sentinels guarding secrets. The estate, they'd learned, belonged to a shell company tied to an international shipping network, one that reeked of everything they'd uncovered: corruption, stolen artifacts, human trafficking. Briggs drove without speaking. In the passenger seat, Captain Reyes reviewed tactical positions with the 3 unmarked vehicles following them. Each was loaded with officers from a joint task force, local, federal, and one man from Interpol who had flown in overnight. But in the back seat, the quietest of them all was Rex. His ears twitched with every sound. His chest rose steady, calm, but his eyes focused, as if he already knew where the trail would end. Raven Ridge wasn't a house. It was a fortress. Stone walls wrapped the perimeter, tall enough to deter intruders but short enough not to draw suspicion. Iron gates flanked by security cameras blocked the entrance, but Reyes had the codes, leaked by a customs agent who'd flipped the night before. The convoy paused just out of sight. Briggs turned and locked eyes with Rex. "You ready, partner?" Rex gave a short huff, then lowered his head. "All business. Let's bring them down." They split into two teams. Briggs, Reyes, and Rex would breach from the south side, through an old gardener's path overgrown with vines. The others would circle west, cutting power, then moving in from the back patio. Timing was everything. As Briggs moved through the damp underbrush, his boot snagged on a root, but he kept moving. The wind carried distant voices, laughter, music, the clinking of glasses. Inside, they were celebrating. They had no idea what was coming. Rex led the way, weaving between hedges, ducking under a low wire fence. He stopped once, sniffed a path of fresh footprints in the soil, and turned left. At the edge of the garden, they saw it, a glass atrium glowing with warm light. Inside, a dozen people gathered around a pedestal, where the Chudauves sat beneath a glass dome. Next to it stood him, Kai, medium build, sharp suit, hair slicked back. He spoke in smooth, charming tones, gesturing like a professor unveiling history. His audience, private collectors, middlemen, elites, hung on every word. They weren't buying art. They were buying power. Briggs's radio crackled softly. "Power cut in 3, 2, drawn." Darkness. The estate went black. Screams, shouting. Flashlights flicked on, swinging wildly. Briggs moved. "Go!" They burst through the atrium doors, glass shattering under boot. "Seattle PD, hands where we can see them." Chaos. People dropped to the floor. Some ran. Kai didn't flinch. He calmly lifted a pistol from beneath his coat and fired. The shot missed. Briggs tackled him. The two crashed into the pedestal, sending the glass dome flying. The vase wobbled, then stopped. Reyes restrained two collectors trying to escape. More agents swarmed in, securing the room. But outside, gunfire. One of the perimeter teams was under attack. A second wave had arrived, armed security hired by Kai's network. Briggs bolted back through the garden, Rex right beside him. They reached the west gate in time to see an armored van speeding toward the woods. "Someone's trying to get away with the backup manifests," a voice shouted. Briggs didn't wait. He jumped into the task force jeep and took off, tires spinning in the mud. Rex rode in the passenger seat, nose to the wind. They chased the van through twisting forest roads. Shots fired from the van's rear window, pinging off trees, ricocheting into the dark. Briggs floored it. Rex barked once, a warning. The van's left tire hit a spike strip laid by the second response team. It flipped sideways, rolled twice, then crashed into a tree. Briggs leapt out, weapon drawn. Rex was faster. He launched through the passenger window, dragging the driver out before he could burn the evidence. Inside the van, 3 briefcases, one filled with thumb drives, one with cash, and one with forged diplomatic letters. Paper trails designed to silence authorities across 3 continents. Briggs radioed in. "All suspects down. Evidence secured." The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was relief. 2 days later, the story broke nationwide. International artifact smuggling ring brought down by local task force. Briggs didn't care for the spotlight, but he made sure Rex got his picture in the paper. The headline, "Seattle's Finest Canine led the way." At the press conference, Captain Reyes praised the effort. Interpol agents confirmed global arrests based on data recovered from the estate. Emily, the journalist, published her full exposé, every name, every transaction, every corrupt official. Ryan testified in court, surrounded by protection. And Rex? He got a medal. A real one. The mayor herself pinned it to his vest while the crowd clapped. Briggs bent down beside him and whispered, "You earned it, buddy." Rex just wagged his tail and licked Briggs's face. Later that week, Briggs returned to the same trail in the woods where it had all started. He stood near the site where the first shard had been found. The leaves rustled. The air smelled like pine and rain. Rex sat beside him, silent. It had taken a village of liars, a museum of secrets, and a city's worth of silence. But in the end, they'd exposed it all. Sometimes justice didn't come with handcuffs. Sometimes it came with a bark and the refusal to walk away. Thank you for staying with us through every twist, every chase, and every quiet moment in this story. We hope Rex reminded you of the heroes that don't always speak but always act. What would you have done if you were in Briggs's place that night in the garden? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe to Heroes for Animals for more powerful stories about the ones who protect, search, rescue, and heal. Until next time, stay brave, stay kind, and always listen when the dog growls.